Welcome to the Grumpy Guy BJJ Podcast with James Wilson and Rob Eickhoff.
Semi-seconds in automatic minutes, finishing to diminish the position that was given risen.
Okay, so we're back for another episode of Grumpy Guy BJJ. My co-host James Wilson here with my buddy Rob. Rob, how's it going?
It's going good, James.
Good, man. Yeah, so we just fed Snakey, and Snakey's sneaking up on the fish as we speak. So we're going to have some fish sacrifice on the podcast today. So it's been a while since we've been able to feed Snakey on the podcast. So much more exciting in person than recorded a week later. But
Nonetheless.
So cool. So how's your week?
Good. Busy,
Yeah.
as usual.
Yeah, it's good.
But nothing too exciting.
Yeah.
Normal shit, life. Except for trying to get down to 150 pounds for next weekend.
That's right. You got a tournament coming up next weekend.
Yeah, by the time this episode comes out, I'll be on my way to Denver. Roughly, anyways. And hopefully at 150 pounds.
I know we were talking about that before. So you're doing an IBJJF, so you got to
Correct.
weigh in the day of.
Before you step on
Right,
the mat.
yeah, right before
within
you step
about
on
10
the mat.
minutes, generally.
And you have to make weight with your gi on.
Correct.
And so it's a little.
154 with the gi.
Yeah, so generally speaking, like 4 pounds for a gi is a safe bet. So yeah, getting down to that 150 for the day of. So so we were laughing about that a little bit because what do you weigh right now?
Well, I was 157.5 this morning. So it's not terrible.
No, but you got a week.
Got a week.
7 pounds. And it's interesting because this is something we talked about before too, is that since you started doing the ramping isometrics, that you noticed that your weight had gone up. It was like your body had responded to the tension with like, oh, I need some extra muscle. And I was really curious what was going to happen first time you try to cut weight, because like you've got your weight class that you're like, this is my weight class, and you know that you've gotten there enough times to know that like, okay, I can do this.
I can get there pretty easy.
Yeah. So
This time's proven to be different, man. Before this, so we started doing the ramping isometrics, September? We went to Steve Maxwell's seminar. And I haven't had to get down to that 150 since then. And prior to this little adventure here, man, like 4 or 5 days of just like really clean eating. And especially if I do like an 8-hour window, if I eat breakfast and then stop eating at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, let's say, so if I eat from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., dude, it's nothing. Within 3, 4, 5 days, man, I'll be down to 149 pounds in the morning, like pretty easy.
yeah.
That is not the fucking case right now, man. I mean, my nutrition's been good, and the lightest I've been in the morning is about where I was today, 157. I was 157.5 today.
Yeah.
So we'll see, man.
Yeah.
I got until today's Friday. I have until tomorrow to change my weight class.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was curious to see what was going to happen first time you try to like get that weight off. If your body was going to be like, no, this is legit. We want it. So, cause I'd see the same thing with mountain bikers, especially who hadn't done strength training before or like legit strength training, and it'd freak them out because usually they want to be as light as possible, and so they start doing some deadlifts, they start doing some shoulder presses, just some good basic strength training stuff. And it's not even like bodybuilding stuff, right? We're not doing 3 sets of 12. We're doing like strength building stuff, low reps, low volume, but their body still would respond with adding muscle. And so they'd be like, man, I've added like 5 pounds. And I'm like, man, that's okay. That's good. Your body saw looked at that stimulus that you're now giving it and decided that the best way to adapt to it was through this additional muscle, and that extra strength is going to help you when you roll. You don't want to get a roll or when you ride, but it goes both ways. So that's the trade-off, right? Like you're that extra muscle is kind of the price that your body is paying, if you want to look at it that way, for that extra strength. And in the ramping isometrics, are so good at building that tension and that strength building capability that it's my chiropractor that works out with me, old Nick. He said the same thing, that he's had the same experience you have. And he's a really skinny dude. I don't know if you've ever met him. He's not super tall, and he's just naturally really skinny. So he's
probably like real close to my size, maybe a little skinnier.
Yeah, he's like in the 130s, 140s. Yeah. And so and he said that since we've done nothing different except he started doing those ramping isometrics with me once a week. And he said, man, I'm like consistently like 145 or something like that. He's like, man, I've never been there before. And I've known this dude for years. He's been trying to put on weight and like purposefully trying to put on weight, and he couldn't do it. And then ramping isometrics come along, and he's like, man, I just got like an extra fucking 7 pounds of muscle on me that just fucking is here. It's not going anywhere. So. And
he's only been doing the ramping isos once a week?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a fit dude, so he does other exercises. But
yeah, we've been working out ourselves consistently. He's been my training partner for like a while. Like, he trained in my facility, so he's literally been training with me or under me for 10 years.
But just the ramping isometrics,
specifically once a week, and wow. That's the only thing we've done different. So, but that's the other thing is, like, I know what this guy's been doing for the last 10 years. It's not like, you know, you get some people and it's like, well, you know, you can't help but see results from a better program because what you're doing was shit. And, but I know that what he was doing wasn't shit. And, well, at least I hope it wasn't, because it's what I was doing too. And so, yeah, to see him get that kind of results from just adding that in once a week. And then I know what kind of results you've gotten. And myself, I haven't seen like the weight gain. If anything, I feel like I'm a little leaner. It was interesting. Like, I felt like I got tighter. Like, things got. I mean, I'm sure you probably feel the same way. There's just like a different quality to the muscle, you know, from doing the ramping isometrics. The just kind of a tightness and tension in it. But yeah, man, it's interesting. They're fucking crazy. I don't know why. Like, where have they been all my life? Like, right under my nose, you know? Like, that's the most annoying thing. Everyone knows about isometrics, but no one knew how to use them properly until Steve showed us. So.
It's been good.
It's been good, man. So, yeah, good luck with losing that weight, because I don't think your body wants to give it up.
My body doesn't want to give it up.
I'm saying right now you're probably going to fucking move up a weight class.
Well,
you have till tomorrow.
I'm already planning on moving up my no-gi weight class, because you have to be 149.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, you know, obviously you're not wearing a gi.
Yeah,
you have to be 149, and that's on Sunday. So, you know, gi's on Saturday. In theory, gi's on Saturday, no-gi will be on Sunday.
Yeah.
That's how the tournament's set up. And I was going to do, you know, basically I have to be the same weight. I got to be 150 pounds on Saturday, you know, plus my 4 pounds of the gi, and then 149 pounds on Sunday, which if I'm there on Saturday, I just would be there again on Sunday. But it doesn't look like anybody is signed up for my weight class in the no-gi.
Yeah. And
I'm still, you know, lone soldier in there. So I could just stay in that weight class and take home a consolation gold medal. or I bump up a weight class and get some matches. And so that's what I would do.
Yeah.
So Kevin, who's been texting me all week, he's been checking the brackets freaking constantly all week. Like, oh, this guy's in there. Move up this class. Oh, you know, he's out. Move down this class. So that's I think that's where I'm at right now with that. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't know, man. I don't think you're going to be able to get down to 150. I don't want to be a negative dude. You know, I'm usually like, I believe, but I think that your body knows better than you do.
But where the problem lies now is one of our teammates is already in that weight class above me, George from Montrose.
Oh, okay.
Because we're the same age.
Yeah.
And at a black belt. And so he's in the Master 2 next weight class up. So him and I would both be in the same weight class, same division. That's the only thing we run into there.
Yeah, well.
So I could always go down an age bracket, or just go into the adult division, or something.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting, man. It'll be interesting.
I'll be rooting for you. I got 24 hours to make the decision.
Anything I can do to help, you know. But I've seen it just so many times where the body's like, it makes a change, and it's like people are just so used to what it was that there's kind of a mental shift that has to go along too. So that's why I was wondering what was going to happen. I was like, man, it's going to be the battle's going to be in his brain more than his body.
Oh, it's been a struggle all week, dude. Yeah, I've been thinking about it all fucking week long.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, what am I going to do? Should I move up a weight class? Can I get down there? I mean, there's no doubt in my mind I can get down there.
Yeah.
I mean, not healthy.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if I wanted to leave here today, by the end of the fucking day, I can weigh 150 pounds. Put on my sauna suit and go. Like I can make it fucking happen.
Yeah.
There's no doubt I can do that.
Yeah.
How good am I gonna feel? Am I gonna be able to fucking wrestle? That's a different situation.
That's a different thing for sure.
That's a different question.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot more water weight. Like you've got like legitimate like muscle, like structural muscle fibers, and even like a lot of weight gain within a muscle with like a traditional like bodybuilding program. It's not really like fiber. It's actually like, you know, kind of fluid and you know, that helps make the muscle fuller. And it's like creatine. Yes, the weight gain that comes from creatine is increasing that intracellular fluid. Like that big word I just threw out there. I actually said it fucking right.
Intracellular fluid.
Right. Yeah. So that's one way of gaining weight, and that's the weight that comes off. You know, you're sweating it off, and the water weight comes off. But actual like structural like muscle fiber is different, because you actually have to break that down and to get rid of it. You know what I mean? And so it's a lot harder to do than if you have that intracellular, and that's what you're trying to get rid of.
Oh fuck yeah, it's way harder, because I've been eating real good for the past month and a half. I mean, I've had a few fuck ups here and there, but
you eat pretty good in general. So like when you say that you've been on point, like that's fucking good.
I've been on point, dude. Yeah. And like I say, a few fuck ups here and there, but nothing, dude, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's still.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been mornings I wake up, like I won't even do anything drastically different. Maybe I drink some more water the night before, something like. And I'll wake up in the morning and I'll be like 160, like motherfucker. And like the morning before, I was 157, 158.
Yeah.
And like, God damn it. You know, and then, you know, again, just stay with the same, you know, nutrition plan. Keep an eye on my calories. Like, I usually don't count calories that much, but I have been, obviously, because I got a goal in mind. And I've been keeping them 1,500 at the most, 1,800 calories a day, no matter what I'm doing. Like, that's it. And someday, you know, usually around 1,500. Fuck, still, man, 157 has been like the bottom.
Yeah.
The least I weighed in the morning.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Fuck.
I know you outweighed me at one point. I remember I think I texted you so I could fucking. It was like the one moment in time. I was down to 163 because I think I'd been sick or something, and you were 165. And I was like, holy shit. Because, like, my entire jiu-jitsu career, you know, I've outweighed you probably like 5 pounds. And so, yeah, I was like, holy shit. That's when I was like, man, this is going to be interesting. I really wonder what Rob's going to do at his next tournament, because it seems like his body's, like, shifted.
It's got a new set point.
It's got a new set point. And that's where... You know, it gets tough when you go into training with too many preconceived ideas. It's like, you know, hey, I want to get better at rolling. I want to get stronger. Because in talking about it, like, all the results that we've gotten from it are great. Like, on the mat, like, yes, everything's feeling great. But
I'm just a little heavier.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't trade that off. Like, I feel good. And so if I'm a little bit heavier, that's cool.
Right, yeah. That's why if you know, coming into it, it's like, well, your goal is to get better at jiu-jitsu, and if your body decides that, like, well, I may need to add a little muscle now to do that, hey man, that's just what your body's gonna do. So
part of me, like I said, I'm still trying to make the mental shift as to whether I should, you know, still pursue that 150 or, you know, make a better decision. But the meathead side of me is kind of excited that if I decide, like, I think especially I will for sure after this tournament, that I'm just gonna like move up the weight class. for Masters World. Right now for Masters Worlds in August, I'm already signed up, but I signed up for the 150-pound weight class.
Yeah.
I'll change that. I'll just bump up to the next one. So that means I got to August, and now I can fucking put on some muscle. So now the meathead side of me comes out. Like, man, let's gain like fucking 5 pounds of muscle.
Get up to 170. Cut down to 160.
Get up to 170.
Yes.
Yeah. So the meathead side of me gets a little excited. But I got to get through this next weekend before I can let the inner meathead come out.
Yeah. Yeah, man. No. I can definitely feel when we roll. I can definitely feel that extra fucking muscle. I mean, you're always pretty strong, but being smaller than me, I could always feel it. But man, now that it's Anyways, as the dude on the bottom,
we'll find out, man. I got 24 hours to make a decision, basically.
Yeah. Well, cool. So, did you see the UFC? What was it, 223?
I didn't watch it.
Just the whole shit around it, man.
The fucking shit show.
Jesus Christ.
Conor and his thugs throwing stuff at the bus.
Yeah, and then fucking having to go through. Holloway couldn't make weight safely.
Safely. The doctors nixed him.
Yeah.
And then Pettis wanted too much money or something, so then they threw an ally Quinta.
Yeah, he was on the undercard, right?
And then the New York State Athletic Commission. So Ally Quinta was supposed to fight Paul Felder. And the first choice Max couldn't do it, Pettis couldn't do it. So then the UFC was going to throw Paul Felder in against Khabib. And the New York State Athletic Commission said, no, Paul Felder can't fight him because he's not a top 15. He's not ranked top 15. The New York State Athletic Commission's retarded when it comes to the mixed martial arts. And so he was out. So then Ally Quinta stepped in. And he did it. And, dude, he took him the distance.
Yeah.
That's freaking awesome, man.
Yeah.
He stuffed some takedowns.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw highlights.
I didn't see it, but I was curious what your take on that. Because, Khabib's he's a fucking killer.
Right.
Right? And so, all of a sudden, he's got this dude who should be, like, a pretty inferior opponent for all intents and purposes that took him the distance. Which is a win for him in a lot of ways, And so, I was curious, was it like he wasn't prepared for him and so, or
I don't know. I've thought about it. I mean, not a ton. Ally Quinta's tough.
Yeah.
And I don't know I know he's got a wrestling background. I'm not sure how extensive, or high level or caliber it is, but obviously it's pretty good. Yeah. I don't know. It's funny, man. He wasn't training for a 5-round fight, but obviously he was in good enough shape for it. Took him the distance.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things there. I would hope. I mean, at that level, yes, you do prepare for a certain opponent.
Yeah.
So you have game plans in mind and things you're going to do. So when your opponent changes, last minute, it's going to throw a little wrinkle into it. But my opinion, at the level Khabib is, it shouldn't fucking matter who his opponent is.
Yeah.
Of course he's going to have a game plan, but if, my opponent's not this person, I still have all my other skills. I can still just smash this dude. And he couldn't put him away.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive, man.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it exposed some holes in Khabib's game.
That's what I was wondering. Like, man, he wants Conor, and
he'd fuck Conor up.
That's what everybody, that's what everybody says. But everybody, I don't know.
I hope.
Well, whatever. I know Conor's. So what do you think the fucking deal with that? I think Conor just you start to believe your own hype too much. I think that was I hope he doesn't keep continuing down that route. But, I don't think it was staged. Do you think it was staged?
Dude, I don't know. I've been back and forth on it. And it's funny, we were talking about this, had a similar conversation about this shit last podcast.
Yeah.
And
right, exactly.
It was just after all this had happened. We didn't know what happened, or it was just before. I think it happened. No, because it happened on Thursday night, and we were recording Friday morning.
That's right.
We hadn't seen the news yet.
We hadn't seen anything. That's right.
And we were talking about how, Conor is smart for talking shit. That way he sells tickets, and he does a lot of shit. A lot of things he does is calculated. Like, he's probably not really a bad dude. But then this happens, and I'm just like, I don't know. It seems way too pro wrestling to me. Like, there's a small part of me that thinks it could be staged. It's feasible.
Yeah.
Because I like to believe in some conspiracy
I wouldn't
theory
be
shit.
shocked if
I wouldn't be.
out.
I don't put a lot of stock in
It
that.
went a little like off the rails, but it was like staged. I don't think anybody.
Because I
people
guess
got hurt.
Yeah,
right. I mean,
Ray Borg was on that bus. Like,
Yeah.
he got glass in his fucking eye.
Yeah, right. Like
he got messed up.
Yeah. That'd be pretty staged if they're like, "Yo, bro,
And
you got to do the job. You got to take a piece of glass to the eye for the company."
Well, that might have been an unintended side effect. Like the whole.
No, that's what I mean. Like,
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised to find out that it was that part went off the rails,
Right.
but it was kind of staged up until that point.
Right.
And
So that wouldn't surprise me.
Connor was like, "Oh shit."
I would be if that is the case, dude. I'm not.
I'd be disappointed.
More than disappointed.
Yeah.
More than disappointed. Like
That's why I don't think that. Like, I'd be so disappointed that if I found out that's what was going on.
Dude, I would be so disappointed to the fact that the odds of me ever fucking ordering a pay-per-view again.
Because then you wouldn't know. You'd never know, man.
I wouldn't do it.
As soon as you found out that UFC staged anything,
like,
it would be like, I mean, you know.
I still like the sport. I love the sport. You know, I love what human beings are capable of. But if I find out that they did that publicity stunt, like, I probably would never order a pay-per-view again. If I was at somebody's house and they had it, I'd watch it.
Yeah.
But I'd be like, you guys can eat a big bag of dicks, man.
Yeah.
What we want to watch, pro wrestling now?
Yeah.
You know, like, fuck, you can fuck right off.
Yeah.
So I hope that's not the case.
Yeah. I don't think
So
it is.
I hope it's not, man. So let's say we're on the other side. So let's say it's not the case.
Oops.
Another thing that I think could happen. Again, this is all just speculation, so fuck it.
That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for. Is, I mean, Connor's young. He's 10 years younger than we are.
Yeah, he's late 20s.
Late 20s.
Yeah.
Worth $100 million now.
Yeah.
Surrounded by a bunch of yes men. And
He's
a bunch
lost his mind.
He's lost his mind.
Yeah.
Hey, dude, if you would have gave me $100 million at the age of 25, I'd probably be dead. I wouldn't have made it to 30.
The problem is there'd be enough people around you that were making money off of you that they would
Want to keep
they
going.
would keep you straight enough to keep making money. Like that is one of the sad things about that. Like you do have
Right.
There's people that age your self-destruction, but there's also people that need you to be
because that dude just
functional.
flew
Right,
across
that's the story, right? He
flew
grabs
across the
20 of his
world.
friends, jumps in a private jet, flies over to New York, and fucking storms the press
the bus,
conference
yeah.
at the I think it's that he just lost his mind. It was, and that's why I said, like, I hope that this is the moment where he realizes, like, oh fuck, like reality is different than this. Like, this isn't the Conor McGregor show, right? Yeah, there is a limit to what I can do with stuff, and again, like going back to the ancient Greeks and Romans and stuff, you can see that all the time. People would take their honor and their glory and they would run with it too far, and there'd be a moment where they took it too far, and if they didn't figure it out and dial it back in, they usually ended up paying a pretty fucking steep price for it down the road. Like, the people made them pay. So,
and like I say, you can't, I don't want to say you can't fault them for it, but I've talked about it before. Generally, that's how I operate. You don't know how too far is until you hit too far.
Right,
and then
right.
you got to reel it back a notch.
yeah.
Here's another thing to consider. Like, say this wasn't staged. Say he did this. He got arrested. He's getting charged for
Yeah.
something. If he gets hit with a felony, in theory, he would never be able to fight again.
Right.
Most athletic commissions, I think, I don't know the exact laws behind it, but once you have a felony, you lose your license to fight professionally. You can't be a prize fighter anymore.
What happened with Tyson? Wasn't that a felony?
No, there was some loophole. When you have enough money, you can get around
Well,
it.
see, that's yeah.
So, but there is that possibility.
No, there's always.
Another thing.
I think they hit him. They charged him with that shit to scare him.
Well, another thing to think is, though, I mean, Tyson was a citizen.
Yeah.
Where for Conor to come over to fight in the States, he's got to get visas.
Yeah.
And if you get hit with felonies there, I'm sure visas get nixed pretty fucking fast.
Yeah, you keep acting the
passports
fool
and visas and stuff.
Yeah.
Like they don't allow them.
Yeah.
So I mean, they got all these things to consider.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think any of those things are gonna happen. But if he stops, you know what I mean? Like, okay, dude, you've been arrested. like, you are facing a felony. I mean, it's probably not going to happen, but, like, at this moment, like, they're threatening you with it. Like, you could have your visa revoked and not be able to come over and fight. Like, it's that wake-up moment where it's like, oh, yeah, like, there are lines even for me, you know, kind of thing. Like,
but those lines get blurred even, because look at...
I mean, people do not tolerate tyranny. And he's acting like a little fucking tyrant. You know what I mean?
Well, to a certain extent, man. Because if you have enough money, you can get away with a lot of fucking shit.
Oh, dude, that is the downfall of so many motherfuckers.
It is. Well, I mean,
they think the money's gonna protect them.
Yes, no, it is. It is a downfall. I agree. And I'm not saying I agree with it. But if me being a normal person, if I went through a fucking dolly through a bus window down at the Greyhound station, how long? I would have been in jail right away.
Oh, of course.
Right away. I probably would still be sitting in jail. If I did that last weekend, I'd still be sitting in jail right now.
You'd have gotten bail. And, I mean, you know, things wouldn't have happened as quickly and as smoothly as they did.
What about John
him.
Jones? The dude hits a pregnant lady.
Yeah.
Runs, comes back to his vehicle to get fucking drugs out of there.
Yeah.
And takes off unscathed. Relatively unscathed.
Yeah.
So when you have money, you can get away with a lot of shit.
Yeah, I know. But it's not, it's more... It'll get you through stuff for a while, and there's more than that. There is, like, you know, I don't know. Again, I'm, like, stuck. It's funny, I was talking to somebody. I need to start a new book. But, dude, I'm so stuck on the Plutarch book, man. It is so fucking fascinating. These dudes live these crazy, crazy lives. And, man, it is such a reoccurring theme over and over and over. Motherfuckers who thought that their money and their power was going to shield them from whatever, and they started acting like assholes. And it never did. Ever, ever, ever. I mean, and you don't count a man happy until, you know, the end of his days kind of thing, you know? So right now, we're talking about it, but it's like, you know, when Connor's laying on his deathbed, like, that's when you're going to be able to fully judge, like, the totality of his work and be like, okay, you know, it worked or it didn't work. But I just know from... what I know from history that more often than not, dudes who didn't figure it the fuck out ended up on that deathbed either earlier than they should have because people were often like taking them out, or a lot more miserable than you would expect because they ended up like having to deal with a lot of stupid shit late in life because they were paying, their future self was paying for what their present self wasn't willing to learn, the sacrifices they needed to make. So I don't know. There's a line. There's fucking most definitely a line. Dude, Tiger Woods. Fucking A, dude. That dude had it, you know, dialed in.
But you know what's crazy about that is...
and that came down. You know what I mean? Dude, talk about money. Thinking that money and power and fame can shield you. And it doing it for a long, long, long time. But man, it catches up with you. There's just... history tells you on a long enough timeline, everyone's fucking ability to avoid a lie goes to zero.
you know, I got thinking about this too, is none of us, I say none of us, vast majority of us, we're not psychologically built to be famous.
No.
And let me elaborate. So, like Connor, like that fucking guy just can't go do normal stuff. You know, he's so famous right now. Like the odds of him just being able to go to City Market and go grocery shopping for the week are pretty fucking slim.
Yeah.
He would just get mobbed. I mean, he might be able to go to a small town and get away with it, but if you know... So
he has to expect that someone's going to recognize him.
Someone is going to recognize him, man. And he can't just go through normal everyday shit and just... You can't just go pump gas.
Yeah.
And get, like, your
saw
life is...
that documentary, he can't even drive down the road. He's driving down the road and motherfuckers are running up like, dude, let me get a selfie with you in the car. Dude, psychologically, you see that fuck so many people, especially young people. Yeah.
You know, that's why you always hear these stories, you know, these NFL players, NBA players, they get these multi-million dollar contracts and just go off the fucking rails.
They're not, yeah.
Dude, what do you expect, man? They're young. They get access to anything and everything they want, and they get recognized everywhere. You don't get to live a normal life.
No, it's not normal.
It's not normal, man. And there's no amount of training. I mean, what kind of self-help books are you going to read to get you through that?
Right, yeah.
Like, you can't listen to enough podcasts or read enough books to prepare you for that. Like, we're not wired to deal with that. So I think that's what you're seeing, is that's what fucking just crumples so many people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we like to sit back and judge because it's easy. But man, we're not wired for that.
No.
We're really not.
No.
And it's gonna do things to you.
Yeah.
And dude, I don't know, man. If all of a sudden, if I was to get shoved that level of fame, I don't know if I am almost 100% certain I wouldn't be mentally strong enough to fucking deal with that. something would break.
Yeah,
dude.
I don't know. You'd be surprised. There's enough examples of people that have handled it well that I believe that it's not. I agree that it's super difficult, and the default mode is to go towards selfishness and being a mini tyrant. But again, man, just reading like that whole the majority of that book, the Plutarch book, it's why it's called the Lives of Noble Grecians and Romans. Is it was the people who, for the most part, were able to buck the trend, and that they were able to handle it with a level of grace that most people weren't. And so I don't know. I'd be interested. I agree with you. That's the default mode, but it's I think that there's. Yeah, I think people can rise above it and handle it well. It's just most people don't, and they end up having to have some sort of social check from the people, quote unquote. Again, like the Athenians had the ostracism thing. It's like, dude, Conor McGregor gets too out of hand. Hey, we're gonna vote to fucking kick the dude out of the city for 10 years. That'll teach him his lesson. Figure it the fuck out, dude. So society forever has had these kind of ways to rein people back in who are getting way too far outside the social norms of the tribe, so to speak. So
yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the situation a little bit too, as far as like casting them out. Is I gave him a pass, like we talked about last episode. He's doing it to sell tickets and a little shit talking. These guys are prize fighters, so
yeah.
Shit talking to sell tickets, I get to a certain extent. But we talked about being a martial artist and the code of conduct and the respect that that's crossed the line.
Right.
Again, like I said, these guys are prize fighters, so you cut them some slack. It ruins it too much. It's too far out there.
It's too far.
It's like, man, I understand to sell tickets, but dude, bottom line, you're a martial artist, man.
Yeah.
Mixed martial arts. You're not like pro wrestling. It's not a sport; it's an entertainment industry.
Yeah,
and like I'm not knocking. Those guys are
right. They're athletes. And
they're athletes,
good
dude.
Shit, I love good pro wrestling.
Yeah, they're great fucking athletes.
Yeah,
man, and they beat themselves up, but it is entertainment.
Yes.
Even though it's scripted and they are they are still getting fucked up. They're great athletes, but it's scripted, so all that shit is expected. These martial artists, they're fighting. There needs to be some more pride. Dignity and respect that goes into it. Like being a fucking martial artist.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of times, I got put into martial arts when I was like 5 years old, 6 years old, because my dad saw that I needed that discipline. I needed to be taught discipline and respect and all these things just because I was getting a little off the rails. I was like 5, 6 years old and I was kind of, I guess I was kind of a violent kid. I was running around fucking karate chopping my sister and shit after watching, one too many Bruce Lee movies or something.
It's Bruce Lee's fault, man.
Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris movies. But, and so that, that's what martial arts are supposed to be for. And I don't want to see that get too out of control, too fucked up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that is what we were talking about last time, because it's Dylan Dennis, because that's kind of how I got brought up. Is like he is facing some repercussions from his social circles for emulating some of these things that Conor McGregor, who he's been training with, are doing. And so yeah, it's like the martial arts circle generally has a different code of conduct than like the prize fighting pro wrestling does. And I guess that's kind of what I was saying. I think this is that hopefully the moment where I think Conor, things just got too blurry for him between the hype man and actually like being that person. and that line got super blurry for him, and he didn't realize it, and it's time to go back to being like, all right, there is a distinct line between Conor the hype man and actually being a fucking thug mini tyrant kind of thing. So I don't know, I'm rooting for him because I like the guy and I like him as a fighter. I hope he comes back and fights. But yeah, that whole scene was so surreal. I was like, this dude has lost his fucking mind.
Lost his mind, dude.
And again, you hate to say it too, but you don't, just in our society, I mean, hopefully not, but odds are like maybe there's like some fucking, some drugs or something, not like illicit drugs, but like legal drugs, like Adderall or Ritalin or fucking some antidepressant or whatever that makes you kind of like your judgment a little off.
I think the only thing clouding his judgment is the stacks of money he's fucking.
No, I know, man, I know.
He's rolling around naked in a bathtub full of $100 bills.
I know,
It's gonna skew your perception of the world.
But when you're watching somebody like fucking do something like that, you can't help but be like, dude, what the fuck, man? Like, yeah, I guess swimming in $100 bills
that would do it.
Can do it. Doing fucking Scrooge McDuck with your money.
You're swan diving off your balcony into a pile of fucking cash. It's gonna change your view of the world.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so now that we've beaten Conor's situation and mused on it, Rose beat.
She wins again,
dude. And we talked about that too, about like what's that gonna be like? Because like I thought Joanna, was gonna beat her, but that's what I was saying. Like, man, I think if she's in her head, it's a different story. And I think she's just in her fucking head.
It went to a decision, right?
No, she knocked her the fuck out.
Did she?
I don't remember. Nah, we'll go fucking.
Well, I say, that's how little attention I paid to it. I know Rose won, but I couldn't remember exactly what transpired. I thought they went to a decision.
I don't know. We'll see. We're pulling it up.
The winners and losers.
We're pulling it up here.
Yeah, I'm 99% sure.
Oh, yeah, she did. All right.
Yeah.
All right, never mind.
Yeah.
All right, I'm off. That's what happens when you don't watch the damn fights. You just fucking look online and get some stuff.
We were more involved with the fucking bus attack incident than we were the actual fights.
The bus? Oh, yeah.
God damn it.
It did. It dealt the... That was crazy, man. I know it was. It was the day out. I remember walking out. We'd done with the podcast, and I turned on Sports Center, and there was like Conor McGregor arrested, and I was like, "What the fuck's going on?" So, anyways, all right. You got any other?
No, I don't really have any other pre-show stuff.
No, cool, man.
I did, but nothing important.
No,
what we talked about's way better.
Way better.
Yeah.
Nice, man. Well, that's good. So, talk about some core training.
Training, yeah.
Yeah, so core training for jiu-jitsu, like what it is, what it isn't, our favorite exercises. How many did you?
Well, see, this is one of those subjects that you sent me this text yesterday, so everybody knows that. Hey, let's talk about core. Or you sent it a few days ago.
I was gonna say it wasn't yesterday.
A few days ago.
Yeah.
So hey, let's talk about core training for jiu-jitsu. What it is, what it isn't, and some favorite exercises. And I have like some rudimentary ideas about core training, and I started thinking about it, writing stuff down, but I was like, man, you got way more experience with this and a stronger opinion. I was like, I am gonna more or less, like, I probably have more questions to do with it, pointed towards you than I do to have like an intelligent, opinions on it. So anyways, that's kind of where I stand with this.
Okay.
I feel that you are more well suited to have like an intelligent opinion of this matter than myself.
Well,
that was my thought.
I was looking forward to your opinion, intelligent or not. So,
so that's where we're at.
That's where we're at with it. All right. Well, cool. So, I mean, you've done again. You were a trainer in a CrossFit gym. So, and you're I would consider you a really high level enthusiast. I mean, you're definitely more than your average, fitness person. So I'm sure you're, familiar with a lot of the basic kind of core training philosophy, and found some exercises to be more effective than others. But so yeah, I guess we'll just kind of start.
We'll start there. So basically, my thought process behind it, when you say core training, I mean that's your midsection, right?
Yeah.
Basically from your pecs to your hips, all around, front and back, right? I'm not going to get all technical with all the different muscles. You can, you can look it up and come up with all these fancy fucking muscle names, but that's basically what you're talking about. And the idea, the function of the core is to stabilize and protect, for the most part. That's kind of my thought process. Like, you need to protect your spine, but not only is it meant to stabilize you and protect, but it's also meant to initiate movement, like force generation, I would say, and also to absorb impact. Like, we're in a combat sport. If you got a bitch ass core, you're not going to be like, and you're getting thrown or taken down, like, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Absorb what I mean. Like, so, like, yeah, you get hit with a good judo throw or a solid double leg, someone dumps you Matt Hughes style. Like, if you don't have a good strong core, something's going to get fucking hurt.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of my thought process.
Well,
yeah?
Excellent. Well, I'll start clearing up all your misconceptions.
Yes, that's exactly what I was looking for. Okay.
So, well, it's interesting. It's good. I like that because you probably have what you just said is probably where a lot of people would fall. Like, so I guess first thing, I told Kiele, because we got to beat the dead horse of it's not just crunches, the days of crunches and side bends being core training or, should be behind us for the most part. That's not core training.
Well, let me argue a little bit there.
Okay.
I don't know, intelligently or not. It's not core training for guys like us, for like combat sport athletes,
right,
for performance. But if you were trying to be like a bodybuilder or a fitness model, you would want to be doing those things.
Possibly.
Right?
Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean...
So it all depends on what your goal is.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, I guess more my... So again, like if you didn't work out pre-internet, I'd say like 2000, late 90s, 2000, a lot of this is really hard to, you're like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about, but we got a lot of people that did work out, so we all remember when muscle and fitness and flex and bodybuilding basically ruled the world, and core training, abs as it was called, right? We didn't even call it core training; it was abs. That was the fucking name. I gotta do my abs, and it was usually handled the same way that the rest of the body was. Is you would try to move your abs in different directions in different ways for using weight and different set and rep schemes to try to build the muscles up. And that was considered core training, and it was a lot of movement-based training, right? Because it was like same thing. If I'm going to build up my bicep, I need to do bicep curls. So if I'm going to build up my abs, I need to do ab curls. Like, that was kind of the thought process behind it. And so, again, somewhere towards the late 90s, early 2000s, it started becoming more popular and in vogue, I guess, for the term core training. Like, that's when that started being used more, and it was people usually from an athletic training background trying to point out that the true function of the core, and again, this is a lot of times, this is where the abs, right? So when they said the word core, a lot of times they were substituting that for abs, and so that's why we usually think about the midsection, like the side bends and the crunches and the low back, like that's your quote unquote core, because we were trying to differentiate, trying to use a different term than abs to get people to think about it differently. And the role for those muscles, for the most part, is not to create movement, but to resist movement and to stabilize and to help protect, especially the lower back. And so that's the kind of where we're at now. Kind of the more modern definition of core training is not, 3 sets of 15 to 20 reps on these, crunches and side bends and movement-based exercises. We're trying to stabilize the core and get it to, stabilize in different positions and for different things. So anyways, does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're saying that is a correct view?
No,
of
I mean,
things? You're saying that's where
that's
we
kind of
are.
where we're at right now. Like when you were saying, when we were kind of talking about like the modern view versus the old school view, and the old school view focused on crunches and side bends, and it's like, well, it was more than just the exercises. It was the thought process that led to those exercise choices, right? And the thought process was that if we're going to build the abs, we need to treat them just like every other muscle in the body, and they need to move. And so you're doing back crunches and back hyperextensions and side bends and side crunches and, you know, all of these things to move. And people were getting their lower backs just fucked up from it. And so anyway, so that's kind of how the terminology and the thought process has kind of evolved to where we're at today. And it's like, yeah, like you said, like, if you're a figure athlete or you're a bodybuilder and there's a specific reason for you to try to, you know, get those muscles moving to try to get them bigger, then yes. But saying that that's just kind of ab training for everybody isn't accurate, isn't the way that most people look at it. So anyway, so that's kind of where, you know, when you were explaining, this is my thought on core training, kind of like that's the evolution of that thought process, right? Like, so why do we think that way? Where did that come from? And that's kind of where it evolved and came from. So a lot of it in my mind is just kind of an evolution, right? Building on that thought process and building on those things. And so probably the biggest misconception, and the one that you touched on in your definition, is that the core is the midsection. Like the best definition I've heard of the core is if you cut off your arms, head, and legs, there's your core. Like that's the core of your body. Like that's the thing that's creating the stability points for you to move around, right? And so for a lot of people, they don't think about the upper body core. I actually kind of define it as like your total core is made up of two sections, your lower body core and your upper body core. And your lower body core is that traditional, you know, you got your abs, you got your obliques on the side, you got your low back. Like that area is your lower body core. And for the most part, you know, it ties into the upper body for sure, and the upper body ties into the lower body. But for the most part, that's the area that's going to create the stability for your lower body exercises. So when you're doing your squats, your deadlifts, your lunges, you really want that lower body core locked in and doing its job. And then the upper body core is, you know, the T-spine, the shoulders. So their job is to create the stability for the head and neck and the arms, for them to move around. And so same thing, like when you're doing your upper body stuff, you really want that upper body core stabilized. And that's where, you know, shoulders backing down, keeping your shoulders packed. That coaching cue, keeping your shoulders packed, keeping your shoulders backing down, what that's trying to do is get you to engage your upper body core and keep your upper body core stable so that your shoulders and your head and neck are in an optimal position to create movement from. And so it's those two things working together that create a truly strong, functional, stable core. And so it's, you know, we've talked about this before, that understanding how your upper body ties into your lower body stuff, whether it's your stretches or your strength training stuff. What I see, the biggest problem I see with people is they'll have from the chest down, they look great. From the chest up, they kind of look like shit. Their shoulders are rounded. They don't really have that upper body core locked in and stable because they're so focused on the lower body, the legs and kind of that midsection, and they allow themselves to let that upper body core get compromised in an effort to come deeper or move more weight or whatever the case may be. And so their total core function is off. Their total core is a little weak because they haven't tied their upper body core into their lower body core to really create that strong functional thing that you're looking for. So does that make sense?
Yep, makes perfect sense.
So that's probably the biggest, like, number one thing right there, is start looking at your core as, you know,
it doesn't stop at your pecs.
Doesn't stop at
like
your
I
pecs.
had just said.
Right, yeah. There's an upper body core that ties into the total picture, and you have to understand how it functions and what it wants to do. And so when you look at it, the joint, the mobile and stable joints stacked on top of each other. That's how the body's put together. So you want like mobile hips, you want a stable lumbar spine, you want a mobile thoracic spine, T-spine, and you want stable shoulders. And a lot of times the stable shoulders, again, just for simplicity's sake, I look at as far as your shoulder blades. The more control and stability that you have in your shoulder blades, the more stable your shoulders are going to be. Because if you think about it, it's your shoulder blades that are moving, and your shoulders are moving along with them. So if I pull my shoulder blades back and down, my shoulders come back and down, right? I can't get my shoulders to come back and down by themselves. The shoulder blades have to come. So if I'm thinking about my shoulders and I'm not really thinking about my shoulder blades, I'm missing, I'm looking at the symptom and not the cause. Like the cause of good shoulder stability is stable shoulder blades. If you got good, strong, stable shoulder blades, and mobility is a part of that too, because you have to be able to get your shoulder blades down and back into the optimal position and then stabilize them there. And that's where the T-spine mobility comes in, because if your chest is caved in, you don't have good thoracic spine mobility, able to extend the chest forward, then you're not going to have the space that you need in the back to be able to pull the shoulder blades down and back. And so there's a mobility component. That's where the mobile thoracic spine comes in and allows the shoulder blades to get pulled into a more stable position, which allows for more stable shoulders. And so all of it ties together, right? Like if you're too tight, you literally won't be able to get your shoulders in the right place, because just like some muscles will get locked short. Those are the ones that we think about most of the time. So we'll stretch out the chest and stuff to try to open up the front and stretch out open up the front side. The muscles on the back side will get locked long, right? And so you have to work on, there's that mobility component to get them to be able to actually move into the range of motion that you need to get them into, which you may not be able to because you just don't have the mobility yet. So I guess it's kind of the thing too, is if, without proper mobility, you're going to struggle to have good core function, because you're going to have to compromise optimal position to make up for that lack of mobility. And so, so there you go.
I mean, it gets me thinking, because you see most people you come across, like if you throw them up on a pull-up bar and you tell them to do, I always call them reverse shrugs. Mm-hmm. I don't know what else. Is that a good name?
Yeah. So you're basically shrugging, pulling your shoulder blades down.
But most people
can't do it.
Fucking can't do it. It's not that they don't have the strength. They probably, maybe the lack of strength is part of it, but just the muscle recruitment, or the lack thereof.
Yeah.
You tell them just to do a reverse shrug, they're like, huh? Okay, I'm like, just do a pull up without like bending your arms.
Yeah,
like,
keep your elbows locked.
Keep your elbows locked and just try to pull yourself up on that pull up bar.
Yeah.
I would have to say 99% of the people I've ever showed how to do that, like, cannot fucking do it.
No. Yeah, that's something, in doing pull ups with people, that's like a precursor. Like if you can't do that, you don't have that shoulder blade control, and
then you're gonna end up hurting your shoulders.
You're gonna hurt your shoulders trying to do pull ups.
For sure. I saw that a lot in CrossFit. Because they go right into someone who can't do fucking pull-ups, so they put them on like assisted pull-ups with like rubber bands and stuff.
Yep.
And then they slowly start getting into kipping pull-ups, and they never taught them to do like those reverse shrugs. Like, okay, man, like you're missing the bottom, third of this exercise. Like you got to go here first.
Yeah. And
then that's keeping everything safe, and then we can work on if you want to do the kipping pull-ups just when you're going for reps or whatever. But I never saw that taught back when I was doing it.
Yeah.
So you would see people trying to do kipping or butterfly pull-ups and just straight fucking their shoulders up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you can't get that your shoulders they're one of the most mobile joints. They are the most mobile joint in the body. They articulate in all these crazy directions. But the trade-off for that is they're one of the least stable joints in the body, and there's a very small sweet spot where you're because it's basically a floating ball, right? It's not even like a ball and socket. You've got like, there's really nothing super stable for your shoulder to lock in against, and so there's a very small kind of sweet spot where it's safe, where it can move and apply force and tension, and it's safe. Like, so it's more that shoulder packing. Like people talk about, like, you know, it's kind of one of the more popular terms for this is, you know, keeping your shoulders packed, but it's really just keeping your shoulder blades tucked in. I think about tucking my shoulder blades into my back pockets. It's not even necessarily like pinching my shoulder blades together. Like I may need to pinch my shoulder blades together to get them lined up to start tucking them into my back pockets, but it's not just pinching my shoulder blades together. And so, but yeah, you got to really, you know, focus on getting the shoulders in the right position there. And if you don't, their injury risk is really high. But that's why that upper body core concept is so important, because if you're not tying that shoulder position and that shoulder blade position into everything that you do, and you allow your shoulder position to get compromised to allow some false sense of mobility or strength when you're working your legs or something else, that's what's going to happen when you roll. That's what's going to happen in real life, and you're going to find yourself one time with your shoulders getting compromised. And it's like, man, that's what you train them to do. We talked about like how fatigue makes cowards of people. It's not really that, though. It's that they don't train for fatigue. They don't train to just stay in the right position and keep breathing properly. And that's one of those things, man, is no matter what you're doing, whether it's core training, whether it's, you know, upper body, lower body exercises, whatever it is, you've got to train the body to know nothing but good shoulder position, good upper body core position, along with that lower body core, so it doesn't even know what it's like to let the shoulders get into a bad position. So anyways, yeah, that is the number one mistake I see people make when it comes to core training, is not really understanding the importance of that. And they'll give it lip service, but then you'll see them just letting that shoulder blade position, their upper body core, get compromised. And it's not a good trade-off. So
you see people screw that up a lot, and that's probably very similar. It's probably harder for people to keep track of that. That's why you see it get screwed up more. But it is similar to people getting lower back injuries and letting that go when if they don't have good mobility in their hips, legs, knees, or wherever, and they're trying to squat. And that's where you see them getting into fucking lower back problems, right? Is it kind of the same thing? Yeah. Same idea?
Yeah, your body it'll compromise optimal position to get through a movement. Like if you tell it you're going to do this, your body will figure out a way to do it. And sometimes you'll if you don't have mobility, the mobility that you require in one area, you're going to make up for it with a lack of stability in another area. So you're going to get extra mobility. So for a lot of people, it's that thoracic spine, the T-spine, it's immobile. They literally cannot just extend it without pulling their shoulder blades back. Like that's how most people, like, oh, I can puff my chest out, watch. And what you'll see them do is they'll pinch their shoulder blades together. And so it's the pinching the shoulder blades together that kind of pushes the chest forward. That's not the same thing as you just extending your spine, extending your thoracic spine without your shoulders driving the movement. And so yeah, that mobility level on most people is very poor, especially in jiu-jitsu, because we're in that hunch forward position a lot. But man, we beat this dead horse too, but just in today's modern society, just sitting on a computer, looking at a phone, sitting on the couch watching TV, we're always in this kind of slight shoulder forward, chest, kind of caved position, and it starts to get locked in, and we lose the ability to move that, and then we don't address it because people don't really respect how important it is, and it's not sexy to work on. You know what I mean? Like, why am I gonna give up 50 pounds on my deadlift because my upper body position starts to get compromised? You know what I mean? Like, people don't want to do that. It's just not sexy. It's like, man, I still look pretty good from the outside, but yeah, it's not the same thing. So Yeah.
So I got a question. This question is more for me. And everybody listening just gets to fucking hear it.
That's good, man.
So you hear a lot of fitness dorks, and I say dorks meaning like fitness experts, but people that nerd out in the fitness realm.
Yeah.
They'll talk about muscle recruitment. Now, are you kind of, I guess from what you're saying, you're saying mobility, but like mobility and muscle recruitment, you're kind of interchanging that same word, or are they falling into two separate categories?
No, well, see, part of mobility is muscle recruitment.
Okay.
Right? Like, so, okay, for example, the brain controls everything, right? And so, like, you could take someone who's got tight hamstrings and like, man, they can't stretch them, and you take it and you're trying to stretch and they can't fucking do it. You put them on an operating table, put them under anesthesia, and whoo, oh, fuck, what's this? They've got full range of motion. It's perfect. What's going on there? And, maybe not perfect, but they've got more range of motion than they had. And it's because, well, they're fucking knocked out. Their brain's turned off. They have plenty of length. Their brain doesn't think that they do. There's something in their brain. They're not recruiting things properly. There's, something's not as stable as it should be. So the brain recognizes that. So it's not allowing proper mobility, or, you don't have enough, you got too much mobility in one area, and your brain recognizes that. So it gets another area stiff to try to make up for that. And so your brain's constantly recruiting muscles for mobility. Like, even when you're doing a stretch, right? Like, if I'm just doing a regular hamstring stretch, my brain there's a muscle recruitment. You know what I mean? It's not like everything's relaxed. There is no stretch where everything's fucking just completely relaxed. It's called being knocked out on an operating table. So there's always a recruitment issue and always a recruitment thing going on. And a lot of mobility is helping the brain just understand how to get better at getting into these positions in a better, more efficient way. And that's what leads to more range of motion. And so, that's why, because when we say, like, where does mobility begin or end and strength begin? And this is why that line exists, because there's always a muscle recruitment problem going on. Like, the reason that your hamstrings are tight is because maybe your hip flexors are overactive, right? Like, they're overly recruited. And so the way that your body's, compromise, making up for that, because that starts to pull the pelvis forward. So the brain recognizes that. So it starts to tighten up the hamstrings, because the hamstring is attached to the back of the pelvis, and they'll start to resist that forward tilt that the tight hip flexors are giving it. So, there's always a muscle recruitment thing going on. And so good athletes, people that move well, like, they've got good mobility and good strength and all that, they've just got really good muscle coordination. Like, things coordinate well. And so they're able to move easier and be stronger and make it look easy. But that's all it is just they've got better kind of muscle recruitment strategies than most people do. So, and that's what you're trying to improve with training. That's where core training, mobility, strength training, whatever it is, that's really at the heart of it, is you're trying to improve those muscle recruitment strategies.
So they're close. They're like neighbors, like mobility / muscle recruitment. There's a
component of it.
There's a component of it. There's not like a hard line. Like, hey, we're working on muscle recruitment.
Well, I would
today,
say, like, it's an ingredient of. You know what I mean? Like, you're comparing like a cake to butter.
Gotcha.
And it's like, no, butter's a component of cake, but it's also a component of, something else that you put butter in. Whatever. I'm drawing a blank and tell how much I cook, but because that's why muscle recruitment's also a component of strength. Yeah. Right, but I would say, it's an ingredient that goes into those things.
That makes sense. The way you put it like that, they're not separate. Like, it's an ingredient of.
Right, but the way that you use it in that is going to be different than the way that you use it in another recipe. Right, so if my recipe for strength, my muscle recruitment, muscle tension stuff, I'll use that differently than I do with mobility, but they're still both in the recipe. They have to be.
You know, it gets me thinking now. It's really interesting, you know, you talking about all that. You know, from my explanation at the beginning of this conversation of what I thought the core was, or what I think the core is, and to what I think core training would be, I would never have said, like, core training, like, mobility is part of core training.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think I would have to assume most people would agree with me initially.
Right, yeah.
Until they heard the rationale otherwise. Like, you hear core training, you think, well, I got to firm it up.
Yep.
You know, like, I got to make it strong. It's got to support everything. It doesn't need to be mobile. It just needs to be fucking strong and, you know, structurally sound.
Yeah.
But to get to that point, it's got to be mobile.
Yeah.
So,
certain joints need to be mobile, right?
Right.
So yeah. So like to get your lower back strong, you need to make sure that your hips are mobile, because if they're not, then you're always going to compromise lower back position, because you just have to, because your body just it has no other choice. It's the only movement strategy available to it. And so you have to open up the hips to give it a different movement strategy option. And then that's where training comes in, is getting it to recognize and use this better option. And then that's what you're going to start using when you roll. So that's kind of the whole, like, you got to make sure the mobility is there before you start working on, you know, stability and strength. You know, because otherwise, and that's another thing too, is there's a difference between strength and stiffness. And if your body doesn't have good strength, a lot of times it'll just start to get stiff. And so you'll see that. So there is a mobility component. You know, sometimes people, they'll have like a really stiff core, and that's not it either. You know, like it's not just like, oh, I'm, you know, like this fucking barrel-chested dude who just, you know, I just don't move. My whole fucking spine doesn't move. What do you mean I need core strength? It just doesn't move. And it's like, that's not it either. Like, that's stiffness. Like, strength is something that you can turn on and off. It's the ability to turn tension up and down as you need it, and not just have tension on all the time. And so, yeah, like the mobility part is definitely part of it, because if you're too stiff, you're going to have trouble increasing your strength and being able to get in a proper position. So, like, there's a lift called the J lift that gymnasts will do, and it basically breaks every single rule you've ever heard of for deadlifting. It's my fucking elbow popping. And you stand on a platform, you've got a bar, and you basically do a toe touch with the bar, and then you just segment, just, you know, fucking vertebrae by vertebrae, just pull yourself up and stack it on top of each other. So if you've ever done, like, in yoga, like a sun salutation,
dude, I've heard of that. What, you just called it a J lift? Man,
Yeah.
there's another name for that. Anyways, go ahead. It'll come to me.
But anyways,
Yep.
So it looks, everything that you've ever heard says that's that's stupid. That's ridiculous. You don't need to do that. But gymnasts do it. They've been doing it for a long time. They do it for a reason. And that's because that ability there is a mobility component that you need. So the ability to have a mobile lumbar spine and mobile, you know, shoulders, it plays into your ability to turn on the tension and stabilize those areas as well. And so that's why training some movement, you know, and that's where mobility comes in. Like, I look at the J lift, it's not a strength training exercise. It's a mobility exercise. Maybe a weighted mobility exercise as you start to add load, but I'm not trying to add strength with that. I'd fucking blow my back out. That's not what it's for. It's a mobility exercise, but it's that combination of mobility and then stability, where I'm doing like my planks, or I'm doing my, you know, deadlifts, or wherever it is where I'm looking for the tension and stability in there. But those two things, it's the yin and the yang that you have to have, and that mobility and strength go in there. In fact, there was a study, I'm famous for quoting studies that I've never seen, and I can't really tell you where the source, but I've heard it a few times, but that one of the things that the Russians found, they were looking at their Olympic versus national level sprinters and trying to figure out, like, what is the physiological difference between someone who almost makes it to the Olympics and someone who does. And what they found out was it wasn't the ability to create more muscular tension that separated them. It was the ability to relax more completely between muscle contractions. So, as their leg hit the ground and they created tension to create forward force, it wasn't more force that they were creating. It was during the return phase, they were able to relax those muscles more completely, which allowed them to create like more tension in comparison, right? So if you think about like your tension meters, like 0 is completely relaxed, right? Like under anesthesia, and 100 is max tension that you can get. And in between your reps, in between your your running strides, you're getting down to, a normal person's getting down to like 50% tension and then back up. So they're able to relax down to 50% and then back up to 150, 100. Really good level guy, he's going to be able to get down to like 30% tension, 100, 30%. But you see, he's actually producing, when he goes to produce tension, he's actually producing 20% more, right? Because they're only able to relax down to 50, so they're only able to like tap into 50% of their usable like tension creation, like tension to create movement. And so the more that you can relax, the more of your tension potential you can put into the movement. It's not just stuck in stiffness, right? It's not just turned on. You're able to turn it off, turn it back on, turn it off, turn it back on. You're able to turn off a greater percentage in between. That's what allows you to actually produce more force, so anyway, but that ability to relax is huge in your ability to actually create force and perform. But that mobility comes in there, because a big component of mobility is the ability to relax the muscles and let them get into those deep range of motion and stay relaxed. And so yeah, there you go.
And that's something you'll see quite a bit with high level athletes, that a lot of times they built around their dysfunction.
Yeah.
They're even though they're competing or performing at a very high level, their mobility and stuff, or mobility / muscle recruitment, is fucking suspect.
Well, it's very sport specific.
Very sport specific, and they've learned to they put a shell around that almost.
Right.
And they can perform their specific task fucking amazing. But you go put them into something else.
Something else, yeah.
And that right there is a recipe for disaster. That's where you see a lot of big injuries come in. I remember my first experience with that is when I was coaching CrossFit. We had this, I saw it several times, but one example really pops into mind. We had this girl come in, and she was a college level sprinter, track athlete. So a good athlete. I mean, I'm pretty sure she was full ride scholarship. I think if I remember right, her event was like the 100 meters, just fucking all out. Good athlete. Like you try to teach her, I don't want to get you excited, but they try to teach her like a kettlebell swing or something. Don't rant. But you try anything.
I've taught hundreds.
But you know what
I'm casting no stones in that one, dude.
Right, but you know what I'm saying. You try to she had a fucking hell of an engine, and she was a workhorse. But her muscle recruitment to do any sort of lifts or anything was fucking terrible.
Yeah.
And to get her, because she was at such a high level, for her to go backwards, and fix that mobility and that muscle recruitment stuff,
yeah,
it would have set her way back, and she would have been shitty for a while until she got back to being good. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times you'll see people aren't willing to take that 6 months, that year of shitty performance to improve themselves in the long run, because they don't want to take that dip, and they don't want to take that performance hit.
Yeah.
And so they'll just continue to build on that dysfunction.
Yeah.
And protect that dysfunction.
Yeah.
And dude, we see that. We train with guys that their jiu-jitsu is pretty good, but their mobility and whatnot is not healthy.
Right, their overall.
Their overall just can't squat worth of shit. And then you get these same people that eventually come to you like, oh man, my lower back's fucked up. Or, well, hey man,
the general movement.
I was trying to talk to you about this fucking 6 months ago.
Yeah,
you're making fun of me for stretching after class or working on this or that.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, no, I mean that's it's funny you mentioned that. I saw that with mountain bikers all the time, where like on a bike, especially like professionals, they look like magic. I mean, they ride this fucking thing, and you're like, is that even the same thing that I'm riding? Like, Jesus Christ, how are they doing that? Then they get off their bikes and they can barely like walk straight. They're like their movement patterns and everything are so bike specific that you get them off the bike and on their feet and trying to ambulate around, and it's like they literally look like fucking deer sometimes, like little baby deer with their unsure of exactly how to move. And yeah, but yeah, so that's why you always got to work on your idea is you want to have those general building blocks that you're building your sport specific stuff on top of. And I see that with young athletes all the time, because they would specialize too early so they could get some early success. And because they specialized so early, they started to develop these very specific movement patterns that were great for their sport, but they had these glaring gaps in other just fundamental movement patterns. And yeah, you get, kids in there that were great, and it's like, okay, here, throw. Get a track athlete, get them to throw a baseball. And it's like, what? I can't throw. And it's like, that's not normal. You should be able to throw. And so, but yeah, it's a tough line, especially when you're talking with pro athletes or someone who's on a scholarship, because they can't afford that dip. The people that I couldn't understand were, it's like, dude, you don't get paid based on how much you lift or how fast you run or anything. You're just a fucking weekend warrior, fitness enthusiast. Like, you can afford to take a little time and take that dip to come out the other end better. But yeah, you'd have to tread lightly with the pro or people who are actually doing some of it. There's still ways to move them in the right direction. But yeah, because the problem too, some of those movement things, some of those dysfunctions, as we call them, they're functional for their sport, right? So like if you're a baseball pitcher, guess what? You're gonna have some asymmetries in the tightness and strength in your shoulders and body, and that's because that's good for your sport. If you fix that, if you were less dysfunctional, you'd be a worse pitcher. And so it's trying to minimize that dysfunction is really your goal with those athletes. And then in the off season, really trying to come back and backfill those fundamental movement patterns, and so that they have that to continue to build on. But yeah, man, people get locked into specific ways of moving. And
yeah, another example of that is there was going around not too long ago. There was some pictures on the internet of some of these NBA players, like their feet, because they're stuffed into those tennis shoes all the time. And those, I don't know. I never understood the fucking basketball shoes that these guys wear. They're like boots. They're like running around in fucking hiking boots.
Yeah.
But these guys are phenomenal athletes. Like these LeBron James, these huge human beings that can fucking move and jump and run. But if you were to send them to, an athletic trainer and they say, all right, let's take your shoes off and let's start working on some barefoot stuff, like they are going to take a hit. Like their performance is going to fucking slide. And they can't afford to do that. They're professional athletes. So I think is what's important.
They can do
to a certain extent.
Yeah,
to a certain extent. But is what I'm getting. Is my point. My greater point is not anybody listening to this. We're just fucking weekend warriors.
Yeah.
Take that hit. Take that. You say a hit in performance. You're a fucking weekend warrior, man.
Yeah.
Relax. Remember what your goal is. The end goal in mind. You want to be healthy. You want to be healthy and happy. And that's it. You want to be able to get around. Yes, you want to be good on the mat or whatever, but you still want to. If you're not healthy and happy, you're not going to be able to train.
Yeah.
Because you're all fucked up. Like take that time with. Don't try to mask your dysfunction.
Yeah.
By building an armor around it. It's not gonna. Yeah, it might serve you very short term.
Right. Yeah.
But we're not trying to do that.
Yeah. No, you don't want to do that.
No.
We talk about that with jiu-jitsu, man. Like, you're going to have to go through a dip if you're trying to improve your game in a certain area or so that's just part of life. But it's funny how people get married to their fucking numbers in the gym. And it's like, dude, to ask somebody to, hey, man, back off your deadlift a little bit so we can, spare your lower back down the road. And dude, people just, they don't want to hear it, which is crazy to me. But anyway, so
it's interesting. It's funny, this conversation that we started out, it all makes sense and ties in together, but I had a feeling it was going to go this way. We were talking about core training, and like I said, I started writing down notes, and I was like, man, James is going to have all sorts of ideas on this. I was like, I don't want to get too married to my notes here because I think this is going to take a turn. So
yeah, no, well, core training is just one of those. It's a fucking super popular topic, and so people always ask me about it. You know, I was doing the mountain biking thing, and so just seeing so much fucking misinformation and nonsense out there. So I got pretty good, I guess, at trying to explain it. But I mean, I think one of the things I got here, I don't know, I haven't said this yet. It's got the star because it's supposed to be the first thing that I said here an hour and 20 minutes into this. Everything should be core training. I just want to, like, because we've talked about like deadlifting should be core training, doing your lunges should be core training, doing your shoulder presses should be core training. So the idea when we say core training, we're usually talking about exercises that are allowing you to focus a little bit more closely on just the specific, position and posture and tension in the core. And then you've got your bigger exercises where you want to maintain that stuff. It's really, you're trying to train the core to act in a better way under higher loads of stress than these other exercises. But it's kind of like, cardio training, or, it's talked about, like, people are like, oh, where's cardio training? It's like, man, everything should be cardio training, because everything should be focusing on your breathing, and that is cardio training. So same thing with this. This would be one of those that are all, what are we going to do for core training? And it's like, when you pick that fucking weight up and down over there, like, for 5 sets of 5, like, that's core training. But we got to have a little box in the workout. And I think that's kind of one of the problems I was going to point out too, that you got to be careful. These boxes are arbitrary. They don't really exist, right? And so we see these hard lines between core training, cardio training, mobility, and there's these fucking super hard lines between them. And that's why, no, man, they don't really exist. They're completely arbitrary. We made them up ourselves. That's why mobility is part of core, and core is part of cardio, and like all these things blend together. But we do have to have some way to organize it. And so that's why we created these boxes, but they're just arbitrary organizational boxes. They're not fucking real. You know what I mean? So don't get too married to them is really the take home message for people, because that's where I was showing somebody, I think it was Thad in Telluride. I brought that was hilarious, walking my mace down. I fucking took my mace from the peaks down to the co-op working space one day because I wanted to show Thad some mace stuff. And so, yeah, dude, strolling, carrying my mace through
downtown
Mountain Village, got on a fucking gondola with it. Yeah, strolled through Telluride with it. And people are just, I think that was the day I had to catch the Grey Goose too. So, yeah, I'm riding the bus with it. It was fucking hilarious. It was one of those, like, I could see people look at it, but they didn't quite know what to make of it. So they were just kind of like, you can see there's like some little spark of like, should I be worried about that thing? But I don't know what it is.
It's not a whole lot worse than people walking around with ski poles or, what I mean?
Which is different. You don't see people walking around with a mace.
No.
You know what I mean? And instinctively you see it and you're like you said, there's something instinctive like, that's a fucking weapon. But funny. It's not illegal enough to not be allowed on the bus or something like that. But my point is, I was showing him the mace stuff, and he made a comment about, I got to figure out where to fit it in my workout, because it doesn't fit any of the boxes. I think I said that, and he's like, yeah, exactly. And because it's like, where's a mace 360? Is that a push, pull, hinge, squat?
Is it strength? Is it cardio?
Is it cardio? Is it mobility? Is it core? Right. What box do we put this motherfucker in? What box do you put Indian club stuff in? And I think that's one of the reasons that those tools have kind of fallen out of favor and also been really slow to get picked back up again, is because people, they can't figure out what box to put them in. And when the confused mind says no, right? I don't know what to do, so I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to go back to doing my kettlebell shit. Because kettlebells, you can kind of force them into those boxes a little bit. Hinge, oh, I got my swing. Squat, oh, I got my goblet squat. Push, my shoulder press. Pull, I've got my, bent rows or whatever. And so it's like I can still kind of shoehorn the kettlebell into these boxes, so it makes it easier. So, but yeah, it's hard to shoehorn.
I think, dude, you hit that right on the fucking head as to why steel maces and Indian clubs haven't exploded. Because you can't stuff them into a box.
No.
Man, I don't know why I never thought about that. It makes perfect sense because, one of the, like you sent me that text said, well, pick 3 core exercises, your favorites. Well, I was having trouble with that. I started writing these notes down.
I know.
I was like, dude, well, everything's
core training. I know.
I was like, so I just one of my notes, I just wrote steel mace.
Me too.
I just wrote fucking steel mace. It's like, well, everything you do with that is core. And then I didn't even think about like trying to stuff them into a box, but that hits it perfectly.
Yeah.
That's why those things aren't just huge, like battle ropes and steel maces and Indian clubs and sandbags.
Like battle ropes, or you can fit them into that cardio
You can fit
training.
them in. Yeah, I guess you can stuff that into a box a little bit easier.
I don't think they get utilized like they should because they get stuffed into that cardio training box.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's a lot more you can do with the battle ropes, but it was easy. It's easy. Hey, cardio. Oh, we fit this in the cardio box. Yay, let's go on. And so, yeah, dude, those boxes, people don't realize they're completely fucking arbitrary.
That was just kind of like mind blowing to me when you said that. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Because I ran into that when I was writing notes down for today's show.
Yeah.
I was like, well, fuck, dude, everything.
Well, I don't know if you remember. So the whole like mace run thing, the jungle runs that I got into, is inspired by. I read that book, Natural Born Heroes. Have you read that one yet? It's a really good one. It'd be a pretty quick read for it. It's the same guy who wrote Born to Run.
Natural Born Heroes?
Yeah. And it that's actually the book that led me on the road to the Steel Mason Indian Club shit, because he interviewed Steve Maxwell in it for part of it. And the whole premise of the book was that the Greeks and Romans, to some degree, had this process of creating heroes. You know what I mean? Like, I'm talking about this fucking book that I'm reading, The Lives of Noble Grecians and Romans, and it's like, dude, these motherfuckers, they were crazy. I mean, just and it was their something that they did, the way that they brought people up, physically and mentally, created a different type of person. And so I think like Dan Carlin talked about that in the King of Kings or whatever, when he talked about like, the Persians and the Greeks. You couldn't just take Greek armor and weapons and put them on Persians and get a fucking the hoplite, the it wasn't the phalanx they had, I forget what they called their setup, but it wasn't the same thing. There was something about the Greeks that made them different in some way. And so the whole idea was like, what was it? Like, what did these people do? Like, how were they able to, like, they talked to Wim Hof in it and stuff, but you'll find it super interesting. But Steve Maxwell was talking about using Indian clubs and maces for training posture and the bounce, how the body's basically made to bounce, right? And so like you're training the bounce in you're bouncing energy from one joint to another joint and back and forth, and from the upper body to the lower body. It's all about like creating energy in one point and then bouncing it through the body to be released in another area. And he was talking about how like the ancients, our ancestors would use tools like the Indian clubs and steel mace to train that posture and bounce in the upper body. And that got me thinking about, because my neck was all fucked up, and I'm like, well, that posture and bounce is, when I get better at that, I'm going to have better alignment. It's going to help my neck. And that's literally what got me going down the whole steel mace and Indian club route. But another part of that book, he talked about a guy, I forget his name, he's a French guy, and he'd come up with a training method, and he called it the natural method, and it was spawned by him. He was in the Canary Islands, I think, and there was a volcano that went off, and this is like in the late 1800s, and he was running to try to like help people, and he said he was appalled at like how many people just died because they lacked the physical skills to just get the fuck away. Like people couldn't run and climb and swim, and this is because of the effects of an industrialized society, and this is in the late 1800s, right? And so he went home and he realized, man, we're losing all these skills, and so he developed this training method that was based on skills. And it's really interesting. I bought his books and read them, and so his boxes were different. They were things like hopping, jumping, throwing, martial skills, so he had this whole list of skills that you wanted to work on. They weren't muscle groups, they weren't movement patterns, they were skills. And so that's how he had his workout structured. His boxes were skills. And so, hey, guess what? If I need to work on throwing, well, all of a sudden the Indian club shit starts to make a lot more sense because I'm simulating throwing with a lot of those movements. If I got to practice martial skills, well, guess what? Mace 360s makes more sense because that's practicing literally like swinging a sword or a mace, or just kind of learning how to handle an object like that and maneuver it around your body, and it'll have self-defense purposes. So all of a sudden, like, oh, I can fit these tools into these boxes, and that's why those tools were created, because those were the boxes that people were looking at. We weren't looking at, what the fuck's a hip hinge? You know what I mean? Like going back 3,000 years and you're talking to some ancient warrior who's using a fucking Indian club or a mace, and you're like, well, what are you working your hip hinge? What are you using for your hip hinge there, buddy? He's like, motherfucker, you see those dudes over there trying to kill me? Like, I'm trying to run fast, be able to, hop, be able to swing this motherfucker, climb, whatever I need to do. There's like a whole list of fucking skills that if I don't have, I'm going to get fucked up. That's what I'm working on. And then today we're all like, hinge, push, pull. It's like, it's such a fucking vanilla, boring way to look at working out, in my opinion. So, anyways.
I like that. We just needed one box. What are you working on today? Not getting fucked up.
Not getting fucked up, man.
I have two boxes. Fucking people up and not getting fucked up.
Right, yeah.
What are you training today? Fucking people up. What are you training today? Not getting fucked up.
Exactly,
that's it.
Man.
That's my two boxes from now on.
Exactly. There was one.
That's awesome.
One of the guys I worked with, he was demonstrating a snatch, and at a seminar or something. And again, this is like late 90s, early 2000s, where the bodybuilder thing, it still is really strong. Like, we forget, like, because we run in these fucking circles, but it's still really strong. But it was super strong back then. And he's showing a snatch. He's an Olympic lifting coach, and one of the kids fucking raises his hands and says, what muscle group does that work? This is the best answer. He goes, well, that muscle group when you're running down the sideline and you jump up over the defender to make the catch? The muscle group you use for that one there? That muscle group. And it's like, it's not a muscle group, dipshit. It's a skill. There's a movement thing that you're trying to work on here. And we're not working muscle groups, and really even the movement patterns are, it's like I said, it's very vanilla the way that we look at it. Like, I'm hoping that's going to be like the evolution of fitness, is we're really going to, like, our boxes are going to continue to evolve. Right, like we used to have basically like anatomy, geography-based boxes, like biceps, chest. Right now, the boxes we call them movement patterns. Like I said, they are movement patterns, but they're very limited in describing what we should be doing with them. But I think those boxes will just continue to evolve. But that's what's standing between Indian clubs and maces, and really being fully utilized on a wider basis is that evolution of the boxes, so we know where the fuck to put them. So
that's it, man. Have two boxes. Fucking people up. And not getting fucked up,
man.
Those are your two boxes you need to train.
It totally is, man. And that's what...
that's awesome.
It's funny. That's where we got the whole like jungle run. We had these woods by my old house. It was a couple acres, and it was just like somebody owned it, but they just let we could go walk on it and shit. And we'd go out there and run, and we'd take our maces. So Rob would come with me. He came with me on
quite
a couple
few times. Yeah.
So, but it was fun, man. We would just go out and we just start jogging. We got our maces and we start doing 360s with them and doing sprints, and we find logs to jump over and balance on and throw rocks and all these different throws that we had, and we got our strength stones. Those big heavy fucking stones that we would just pick up off the ground.
Have you scoped out a good mace run area around here yet?
Dude, I think the disc golf course is going to be, it's pretty good, man. It's got some down trees for jumping over and climbing on. We can go down by the river and there's a shit ton of rocks and we can just fucking huck rocks into the river, which is surprisingly satisfying. Yeah, I don't know. That whole area over there we can kind of scope out, but I think that's going to be the deal. Well, I want to figure out how to, because I want to take a disc, right? Because that's the play, is we play around with the mace and we turn it into a mace run. So it's like we throw the disc and then we, fucking run to the disc or whatever. And when we get to the disc, we got to do some 10 and 2s or, we come across shit and we're climbing on or whatever. But that's the play. But I got to figure out how we're going to carry that one disc. And I want to keep both hands open so I can do shit with my mace. But anyways, we'll worry about it later. We'll figure it out later.
Good idea though.
So that's good core training. Throwing a disc and then swinging a mace.
Steel mace disc golf.
Fuck yeah, dude. It's going to be the next craze. So
that's my number one core training exercise for today's podcast.
Nice, man. So let's see. I got a couple other little things. So I know we've been kind of on and off the core training thing, but like I said, it gets fuzzy, Where does core training end and strength training begin? I'm not clicking my pen. Bugging. So I got what else do I got here? I guess 2 points. Breathing. Make sure tying the breathing into your core training. So even if you're doing like planks or something like that, like it's whatever you're doing, you got to make sure that breathing's coming in to play. So make sure you think about that. And then also another thing that people don't think about is how your grip ties into your core. And so there's a guy named Gray Cook, the functional movement systems is his deal. And he has this saying that your grip is a window to your core. And so having stuff that works your grip, like the steel mace and the Indian club stuff, that also works your core, especially that upper body core. But one of the things that you want to keep in mind with that is if you've got a big grip strength asymmetry, like if one hand the grip strength is just really good and the other hand it's not nearly as good, you got a core strength asymmetry. Like that's what he means by it being a window to your core, is both your grip strength itself and then also using asymmetries in your grip strength to alert you to kind of underlying dysfunctions that may be there that you want to dig into more. But yeah, I would say like that was one of the things Indian clubs and maces really highlighted for me, was if your grip's not involved, is it really core training?
It's a good question.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's times to have it isolated, but I'm just thinking like, I know when I'm wrestling, my core strength and my grip are intimately tied.
Oh yeah.
When I'm mountain biking, they're intimately tied. I can think of definitely some sports, maybe like snowboarding or skiing or surfing, where that grip strength component isn't as important. But yeah, man, if you've got a grip component, it's again, it's like I would look at incorporating the grip stuff into my core training rather than just like trying to have like grip like training, So, but anyways,
that's a good point.
Kind of last thoughts there. So, what'd you come up with for your exercise, man? I figure we'll close out with a couple suggestions.
That's the thing I kind of ran into is I started writing them down. I was like, well, fuck, everything is core training. One, so your steel mace and your Indian clubs.
Yeah.
Those are huge. I won't even go into all the different fucking exercises you can do with them.
Yeah, just that grip strength. What we were just talking about, holding one turns whatever you're doing into way more of a core exercise. And then two, the rotational stuff, because I had that written down too, that you swing a mace around your head, swing an Indian club around, there's rotational forces that your core, you touched on. That is one of the things that you did mention, which actually your definition early on was pretty spot on. You just had that one thing, but one of the things you do want to do is be able to absorb impact with the core. And it's not just lateral forces or, you know, front and back forces. There's spiraling diagonal forces that you need to teach your core how to absorb and deal with. And that's where I think the Indian club and mace stuff shine. I mean, you just can't really, it's really tough to train that with other tools the same way. There's some like sandbag stuff, like some rotational lunges with the sandbag, and there's definitely some things you can do, but man, they really shine. But man, that grip strength, we were talking about before we started the podcast about how important it is for cross collar chokes. And then I realized that that's the problem that most people have early on with their cross collar chokes is, man, their grip strength is just isn't strong enough for them to get their hand into the position and hold that position as they go to apply the choke. And that, you know, just doing I haven't been practicing cross collar chokes at all, just doing a shit ton of mace and Indian club stuff and then demoing that move last night. I could just feel the difference, man. It was like, holy shit, I can pop somebody's head off now. And it was just that grip. It was just the grip stuff. And nothing else trains it. If you're not doing Indian clubs and maces, man, like dude, your grip is just not, it's that wrist stability. That's what it is. Because it's not even like grip strength. It's not like my ability to grab something and hold it. It's my ability to stabilize my wrist. And you know, move it and then hold it where I need it to be, and it's that wrist stability that's really improved with that shit. That dude. Anyways, we're beating a fucking dead horse. It's such a good fucking tool. If you're not using it and you're listening to this podcast, man, you should be doing two things. You should have a fucking notebook, and you should have a 10-pound steel mace and a pair of 10-pound Indian clubs. I'd say like. I mean, would you agree?
I'd agree.
Is that like the Grumpy Guy fucking
like starter kit?
Starter kit, the real starter kit. I mean, yeah, get involved in the way. It's nothing, man. It's my computer. So
then the other thing I had, steel mace shit. I did throw in Turkish get-ups.
Yeah, I got that.
If you want, I mean, you want to do them with a sandbag. You want to do them with a kettlebell. You want to do them with a steel mace. You want Indian clubs. Pick something. You don't even have to do them with anything. Fucking do it. If you're looking for like you're trying to get warmed up, you know, do Turkish get-ups without any object.
Yeah.
It's just a good range of motion exercise.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. Because you're, again, that mobility tying into strength. Like, you can have a strong core, right? Like, doing planks. It's like, I can do my ramping isometric planks. I'm super strong. But the Turkish get-up adds the mobility component into it. So it's, you know, if you don't have adequate hip mobility or adequate T-spine mobility, your core is going to start to get compromised as you're doing the movement. So yeah, I got that down too. I like that. It's such a good, it's funny you call it a core training exercise. I do too. I categorize it in that box. And I did that when I ran my facility. But that's all it is. It's a moving plank for all intents and purposes. You know, you're trying to just train your body to move through different positions and ranges of motion while maintaining that strong, stable core. And yeah, I can't think of any other exercise that does quite as good a job as it does. So made my list too, bro. So far we're 2 for 2.
And then I had balance exercises. You know, like you say, balance board. You know, single leg stuff.
Yep.
But then you're just getting into it, the lines get fuzzy. Like, so if you're doing like a single leg squat, like a staggered stance squat, like we've talked about, or, you know, a staggered stance deadlift, like that shit's all core.
Yeah.
Like, you're having to use a ton of core doing that stuff.
Yeah.
I had a tough time. I was like, dude, everything you fucking do.
I know, it's tough, core. Man. Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's tough to draw that line.
Stuffing things into boxes.
Yes.
And I did put planks.
Planks, yeah.
They are good.
I think planks and side planks.
And yeah, any version of planks.
Yeah. No, they're good. I think what I like planks for, especially now that I really like planks now that we've got ramping isometrics back in our lives. You know, and again, if you haven't heard the ramping isometrics, you're starting out 30 seconds at 50%, then you ramp up for the next 30 seconds at 75-80% tension, and then finally last 30 seconds 100% tension. And I like that because there's a certain level of just like total body tension that you want to be able to create. So it's just like total body tension and ability to fuel that tension. that it's just kind of a foundational element for core strength. But, you know, it's definitely, you got to have the movement stuff in there to get it to be more functional, because a lot of what you're looking for, there's different, like the stability stuff, that the muscles turn on right before you start moving, and it's more of a subconscious thing. And, you know, it takes much less strength to stabilize a joint than like what your muscle can actually produce. And so that's like why when you're doing a Turkish get up, you're not trying to hold that 100% tension level. It's not like, okay, set your core as tight as you can, now keep it tight and go, right? Like that's not it wouldn't work, right? So anyways, the plank kind of works that other end. It's that high tension creation. And then a lot of the other movement exercises, movement-based stuff, are working on, you know, applying that to, you know, different movements and stuff. So yeah. So I had a couple here as well.
That was pretty much all I had.
At the end of yours?
Yep.
All right. So I got, some basic ones. I got a little bit of a list here. This is where like rolling and crawling come in, rolling around on the floor, crawling. All of these things are good core training, because, again, if you think about the job of the core, trying to, you know, the upper body and lower body core, connecting the upper body and lower body together. Another job of the core, your left side upper body is connected to your right side lower body, and vice versa. So there's kind of this X that goes across the body. And so those X patterns are extremely important to be working if you're wanting to do like good functional core training, because that's the main function of the core. And so the rolling and the crawling work on kind of the foundational elements for that X pattern and stuff. And so they're good. Another thing, an easy kind of hack, if you want to call it that, for core training, is to use half kneeling exercises. It's basically just getting down on one knee. And the trick with half kneeling is you got, you know, one knee on the ground, the other foot's in front of you, is to keep 90+% of your weight on the knee that's on the ground. So really drive your knee heavy into the ground and just try to use that front leg as a kickstand. And you'll feel when you do that, it really forces you to engage the hips and the core. And so you can do your Mace 360s from that position. You can do shoulder presses. You can do, if you have like a cable or, like bands or something, you can do rows from that position. A really good one is an anti-rotation press. So like if you had a band set up, you'd be at like a 90-degree angle to it, and so you're holding it in front of you, so the band's basically trying to make you like turn to the side, and you're resisting that rotation. But that half kneeling position will really allow you to turn other exercises into core training exercises, because you'll find a lot of people, there'll be an asymmetry. You'll get like your right knee down and be strong, and then go to your left knee, and all of a sudden you're much less stable and you're much less strong. And that's not good. Like, you want to iron that out. So that half kneeling stuff's kind of a good hack for that. I got like a specific crawl. I really like bear crawls and beast crawls. The beast crawl is like a bear crawl, but with your knees almost scraping the ground. You're really keeping your knees low. It's super hard on the core to maintain that position, but it's a self-correcting exercise. If you don't have good core position, it's really tough to do. And so I kind of like that specifically as a crawl for core training. And let's see, we talked about Turkish get-ups. The other one I like, man, for jiu-jitsu specific, is that butterfly crunch with the ramping isometrics. So it's tough to describe on a podcast. I don't know if it's on our workout.
No.
I'd have to check and see. But yeah, you're basically getting your legs, like if you're going to do like a butterfly stretch, and then you lay back, and then you crunch up, just getting your shoulder blades off the mat, and then you take your hands and press it into your forehead, trying to push your head back down onto the mat. And I know Steve Maxwell classified that as a neck exercise, and I respectfully beg to differ. My abs are definitely the weak link in that. It's not my fucking neck. It's giving out.
I can't choose what hurts more in that one.
But that one's really good, I think, for jiu-jitsu specific purposes, because I found it's helped me a lot because we sit up so much. There's a lot of sitting up. There's a lot of being in that that kind of like, semi-crunched position, trying to close off space, between your knees and your elbows and keep your hips protected. And it's so easy to use hip flexors and all sorts of other muscles to do that stuff. And I've found that since I've been doing that butterfly crunch, because you sit up, and man, it's the abs. I mean, you're able to really focus on using your abs, the position your body's in. Doesn't really allow you to recruit other muscles that help you with it. And I feel like my ability, like in closed guard, to sit up on people, trying to sit up just in a lot of different positions has gotten better. And I'm sure it's all tied together, but I feel like it's kind of helped my groin. I feel like part of my groin injury problem was that I was overworking my hip flexors and groin instead of using my core, my abs, to do that sit up there. Because for a long time we were told not to crunch, right? Like crunches are like, oh, you're gonna blow your spine out. And there's like, this is where the isometrics come in. It's like, yeah, doing crunches like over and over and over repeatedly, and like doing full crunches where you're actually, it's not just the shoulder blades coming up, but you're trying to like sit all the way up to your knees. Those things can definitely start to have some detrimental effects. But the problem is we threw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, you do need the ability to sit up and use your abs to do that, but it doesn't need to be that full sit up. You sit up, get the shoulder blades off the mat, because any further than that is hip flexors. Like that's as far as the abs themselves can crunch. And if you're going to come up higher, you're going to have to start recruiting hip flexors. And so it keeps that, out of the equation. Really lets you focus on those jiu-jitsu specific sit-up muscles. But yeah, so I just I was thinking, what's my favorite jiu-jitsu specific one? And right now that's it. So there you go, man. That's my list.
I like it.
Yeah, so.
Say we call that a wrap.
Yeah.
I want to go train. You probably can't train the way you've been limping around this morning.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't
think it is, the way you were walking.
Yeah, I know, man. My foot.
You better chill out.
Yeah. I know I say it. I should take today off.
I'll probably see you at open mat tonight.
I know. Yes, I'll probably be at open mat tonight. But that's the problem. Like I told you, once it gets warmed up, it's fine. But my calf's definitely a little tweaked. But and then my fucking hand too, dude. Like, I'm not gonna lie, my fingers are a little jacked up from getting the knee to the fingers last night. But yeah. So, anyways, cool. We'll go from there. So, all right. Well, I guess that's it. You've got our outro.
I got an outro. So we don't have to talk about any of that shit.
Say nothing, man.
Nope.
So we'll be at it next week. Got no idea what we're gonna talk about, but we'll
talk about something.
We'll find something, man, for sure.
Figure it out.
Okay. So, all right. Well, it's fun as always, guys. We will talk to you next time.
See. Thank you all for listening. You can find us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Please make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. It really does help and will allow us to keep putting out episodes. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, hit us up at grumpyguybjj@gmail.com. Also, go to our website, grumpyguybjj.com, and get signed up for podcast updates and get our free BJJ Improvement Starter Kit. That's it for now. So get on the mat, train hard, and talk to you all next week.
With a permanent rep, a hermit now, boom. Doggy school, foggy cool, got a froggy outside Molly dude. Now they're calling Daisy Duke, hanging by the lace of their shoes. No trace of the tools, shaped in your face, fuck the rules. Snooze, you lose. One eye always open, it times two. No clue, but soon a brief monsoon might give you a view to choose. Stay tuned, include, won't conclude. To the end is near, beware there's consequences, but what you do